I'm Owen Bigland. This is the Inside Edge video blog. Quick little 2-minute video here, 3-minute video on some new things that are coming up with both Airbnb as well as the legalization of marijuana that I wanted to touch on here. And this especially goes to my investors out there. I'm working with investors every single month, so this is something you guys want to take note of. Now, as far as Airbnb goes, these are some things that I've been discovering here over the last 3 or 4 months. As most people know, most stratas now in downtown Vancouver and everywhere in the Lower Mainland have changed the bylaws to restrict Airbnb, no short-term rentals. And a lot of stratas now, some of the big ones downtown Vancouver, they've gone a step further. They've got people that are going on Airbnb daily and looking to see if anything looks familiar on there. They're even calling Airbnb hosts to try and get the addresses, and if they find out that it's in their building that has an Airbnb restriction, they're laying down some pretty heavy fines. So there's very few stratas now in Vancouver that allow short-term rentals. There's still some, but most don't. And now people know as well, you need to be licensed now in the city of Vancouver to run Airbnb, which is a good idea. I mean, these Airbnb hosts should be licensed and, in my opinion, should be paying taxes as well. I've been reading that, many of these Airbnb hosts for years have not been paying taxes on the income, which seems ridiculous to me. Now, one thing I want to point out to people here, and this is something that I've been discovering more and more. I've been talking to property managers about Airbnb, people violating it. A lot of times, these Airbnb hosts are not the owners of the unit. The Airbnb hosts are tenants. These are people that are going out, renting apartments from landlords or, in a lot of cases, property management companies, saying that, it's for them, and then turning around, furnishing it, and putting it onto Airbnb. So they are subletting it, and this is just crazy. So this is why, as a landlord, if you're an investor, you want to make sure that you are heavily screening your tenants, your potential tenants now. You also want to be putting in an Airbnb clause in there. You should have had that in there for years now, that it is outlawed by your strata. You are not allowed Airbnb, of course, because you cannot sublet. So you better have a sublet clause in there, that this tenant is the only one that is going to be occupying the unit. And then I would go one step further. It doesn't hurt every now and again, if you have any suspicions, to go on to Airbnb and see if you recognize your unit on there. Because from what I'm hearing, that is the majority of these illegal Airbnbs. They're not the owner. The owner doesn't even know about it until they get caught, the tenant gets caught, and they're the ones that are going to start getting hit with the fines. The owner, not the tenant. So be very careful. It's just another layer of scrutiny you've got to do as an investor. And again, it all comes down to really getting a feel for who you're renting your place to. I mean, I've told people before, the #1 reason I get investors that call me and say, "Oh, and I want you to sell my condo, my investment unit," the #1 reason is because they've had some bad experiences with tenants. And oftentimes when I talk to them, they just weren't doing any screening. They weren't running credit checks, which is crazy. You want to apply to be able to run a credit check, an Equifax. And there's a number of companies that can do it for you. It's a little bit of work. You've got to apply to be able to do it. So you've got to do some work with it, a lot of paperwork. But once you're in the system, from that point on, it's a breeze. You submit the prospect's driver's license number, social insurance number, and you're able to run a credit check and get a beacon score. And personally, I would never put a tenant into a unit unless I had a credit check done on them. And you also want to check their references. Always call the employer to verify that's where they're working and what kind of guy or girl this is. Check on that, and check on their past landlord. New did they live and who was their last landlord? Make a 2 or 3 minute call. Do your homework. The other thing I want to talk about quickly is these legalization of marijuana. So as everybody knows, I guess it's October 12th, recreational marijuana will be legal in Canada. Now, I don't know why, but the government is going to allow people, for the dumbest reason, to be able to cultivate their own marijuana in their residence, including in apartments, stratas, condos, townhomes, which is ridiculous. You can grow up to 3 or 4 plants, I think. Now, I am noticing, and this is coming on the stratas that I own in, we're on top of it, and you're going to start, just like the Airbnb, you're going to start seeing at your AGMs now a new a vote to change your bylaws, the Strata Bylaws, to ban or forbid the personal use or growth of marijuana in your unit. So the ones I've been seeing here now to change the bylaws, it is you will not be allowed to smoke, cultivate, harvest, processing, or distribution of marijuana is prohibited within the boundaries of the strata. That's one that we're voting on next week on one of my AGMs in Olympic Village. And I think pretty much all the stratas here will be doing that over the next 6 months. And if you're watching this, talk to your strata president and make sure you guys are changing your bylaws to prohibit the growth and cultivation of marijuana, especially in condos and detached homes as well. This is nuts why they're even allowing this. I don't smoke marijuana. It makes me tired. And I have no problem with people that are smoking marijuana. That's fine. It's legal anyways. You go down to California and they're smoking it everywhere. You can buy it on every corner. But that's the whole idea. You can buy it on every corner. The people I talk to, I can tell you marijuana is dirt cheap. You can buy a bag of the stuff for 20 bucks. So for the life of me, I don't know why anyone would take the time and buy the lamps and the fertilizer and everything else to cultivate marijuana when you can go down to the street corner and buy a bag for 10 bucks. It's kind of like brewing your own beer. I know it's a hobby for people and they enjoy the process, but geez, you can buy a 6-pack down in California for 3 bucks. I don't know why people would make their own beer and go through the trouble, but I know that's a different thing anyways. But so make sure that your strata, if you're a condo owner especially, or you're renting a detached home, make sure you're also putting this in your tenancy agreement, that there is to be no growing of marijuana. Even though it's legal and you're allowed to do it now, you want to forbid that. You want this in all your contracts, all your rental contracts, and make sure you spell it out in the tenancy agreement. Also, if you're a strata owner, make sure that you're at the AGM, you're passing new bylaws to prohibit it, just like the Airbnb. I'm Owen Bigland. As always, thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do. I'll see you next week.